Is this Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine as important as the news reports seem to be indicating? Welcome to this video, glad to have you as always. The only way to answer a question like that is to look at the evidence. So we have the published report from the company at the moment and from the Oxford group, but we don't yet have the peer-reviewed article in a journal, but that has been submitted. And the answer to the question, to give you the bottom line, is yeah, I think this is a real game-changing vaccine. Let's think of some reasons for that. One is it's incredibly cheap. Less than, well, you expect about $3 per dose, less than €3 per dose, so incredibly cheap. Seems to have good efficacy. It looks like it's going to be around about 90% once they've adjusted the dose. And as well as that, it is so easy to transport. You can keep it in a fridge for months. Ordinary refrigerator, carrying it around on your rounds in an ordinary cool box with a few ice blocks. Just inject it into the deltoid muscle. All really straightforward stuff, the way we've been giving vaccines for, well, all of my career anyway. Long time. So I think this is really quite important. So let's look at some of the more detailed information now. Now this was the phase 2 study, phase 2-3 study. This one, I've given you the link to this. Do look it up for yourself and check out the details of that. That didn't give a lot of numbers, but it did indicate that the efficacy was good and the safety was good. So that's the phase 2 trial, but we're more interested in what the phase 3 data is showing, and that's what we're looking at now. Now, this is a viral vector. It's a weakened, or what we call an attenuated virus, and it's a chimpanzee common cold virus. It's an adenovirus. And what the researchers have done is they've taken this fairly harmless, or really completely harmless in the vast majority of circumstances, chimpanzee common cold virus, and they've taken some RNA that codes for the spike protein in SARS coronavirus 2, inserted that into the RNA that was already in this virus, and we end up with a combination of SARS coronavirus 2 RNA with the RNA from the monkey virus already. Then when this virus is injected into people, because it's not dead, it's only attenuated, it starts producing the spike protein, or not the spike protein, but a molecule which is the same shape as the spike protein on SARS coronavirus 2. That is expressed by this virus, the adenovirus, which constitutes the vaccine. Then of course these SARS coronavirus 2 shaped proteins will be detected by the immune system, and this shape will be recognized, and that will be memorized by the T cells, and antibodies will be made by the B cells that are able to combat that particular antigen, or as that little bit on the end is called there, the little bit there that the immune system actually recognizes is called an epitope. So the epitope is the part of the antigen that the immune system recognizes. So that's the way it works. After vaccination, the surface spike protein is produced, but it can't cause infection, of course, because the spike protein, or the protein that's shaped like the spike protein, is not attached to a SARS coronavirus 2, so it can't cause COVID disease. But the body can learn to recognize the shape of the COVID-19 spike protein, therefore make an immunological response to that. Now, after the first injection, T cells are produced. So T cells are actually produced early, and antibodies are produced later on. But the doses of this vaccine are given 4 weeks apart, so it does take some time for the full immune response to develop. A week or two after the second dose of the vaccine to fully develop an immune response. So this is not going to be instant. This is going to take basically up to 6 weeks for a full immune response to be generated. Now, what they did with this vaccine, as with the other ones, they basically got two groups: the group that got the vaccine, the intervention group, the group that didn't get the vaccine, the control group, and they waited to see who caught infections. And in both groups, the vaccine group and the placebo group, 131 people have so far caught the infection. And of course, the efficacy is the difference, with many fewer people catching the virus in the control group. No, many more people catching the virus in the control group, and many fewer people catching the virus in the experimental group that had actually given the vaccine. Of course, that's the right way round. So we know it's producing this immune response from the phase 2 studies, actually. So interim report of 131 infections. It's a positive high-level result. Now, this is probably the best conducted study of its type, because of all the patients in the trial, they were taking 8,000 PCR swabs a week to test for the presence of the virus. And this means that they would pick up the symptomatic and the asymptomatic cases. And of course, they found many more cases in the placebo group, many more infections in the placebo group than in the vaccinated group. So picking up a lot of patients there, which is useful. This is the vaccine here, that's what it's called, AZD1222. Now, the data that's so far published, or in this report, comes from the UK and Brazil. Much more data to come very shortly, but already this data is good enough to give very significant results of efficacy and also good results on safety of this vaccine. So all remarkably encouraging so far. Vaccine was highly effective in preventing people getting COVID-19 infection, which was the primary endpoint of the study. Now, we're going to give figures for the efficacy of the vaccine in a minute, but really you could say that this vaccine was 100% effective given the doses, given the cases that they have so far, because of the 131 people that were confirmed infections, the few of those that were in the group that were vaccinated, none of them were admitted to hospital or became seriously ill. So far, this vaccine is 100% effective in preventing serious illness and hospitalisation, which of course is what we really want, isn't it? Now, Group 1, 2,741 patients reported on. Now, this is interesting. They were given a half dose of the vaccine first of all. So the half dose is 25 billion viral particles. Then they were given the full dose later on, the 50 billion viral particle dose. Sounds a lot, but that's probably only 0.5 ml or something. The viruses are very small, of course. The 2 doses of the vaccine were given 1 month apart, and the vaccine efficacy there was 90%. Now, interesting. So they were given a half dose here, 25 billion viral particles. So that's 25 billion. The full dose is 50 billion. And the patients that had that regime, the low dose vaccine of 25 billion, followed by the full dose vaccine of 50 billion, the efficacy there was 90%. In other words, there was 90% fewer infections in the group that were vaccinated compared to the control group. Highly efficacious. Now, the second group, larger group, nearly 9,000 patients, they were given 2 full doses of the vaccine at least 1 month apart. So they were given a 50 billion dose followed by another 50 billion viral dose. And there the efficacy dropped way down to 62%. Now, a vaccine with an efficacy of 62% would still be absolutely brilliant. It's still highly useful. But isn't it interesting that less is more? So further studies are now being done on giving lower doses of this vaccine. For example, what would happen if they gave 2 lower doses of the vaccine? Would the efficacy go up? Well, the only way to find out is to do it. So studies are being done in that now. But isn't that interesting that the lower dose, much lower dose for the first vaccine, gave much higher efficacy rates, 90% versus 62%. But when they combined both of these groups, 11,500 patients, they found an overall efficacy of 7%. So it looks like, and I'm fairly confident here, that when they adjust the dose correctly, we can be looking at efficacy rates of 90% for this vaccine. And that is absolutely stunning. Absolutely incredibly good. The results were statistically significant, so there was only one chance in 10,000 that these results arose by chance. So very highly significant result. Promising, absolutely, indeed. Now, one of the things about this vaccine, all we know about it really comes from this report. So this is the report, and again I'll put the link in, of course. Just the report from the company, really. But there's some interesting videos and things you can play there if you go onto that link. And one of the things I love about this vaccine is they've got this planned rollout for the whole world. So do click on this link and look at it for your area. So April estimates parallel agreement to ensure global access. UK, USA, all these blue countries down here getting the vaccine at an early stage. Then this planned rollout of the vaccine covering the whole world. And I would definitely predict, as long as the safety data is right and if the efficacy remains at 90%, that this will be the vaccine that most people in the world will get, because it is massively cheaper than the Pfizer. I mean, the Pfizer's cheaper than the Moderna. The Moderna's the most expensive. It's probably about 10 times the cost of this. And of course, the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine, the pharmaceutical companies have declared they want to make a profit on it, which is understandable. But with this Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, they've declared that they won't be making a profit as long as the pandemic lasts. And I'm guessing it's about 10 times cheaper. So this is the one that the world is going to get, I would imagine. And very high orders have been made from the United States, European Union and the United Kingdom, who will be getting this vaccine in huge amounts, as well as that rollout plan. So more accurate data to come. Obviously, this is ongoing. You know, the data is being collected as we speak. So there'll be refining of the efficacy readings with more data and establishing the duration of protection. Now, we don't know the duration of protection with any of the vaccines. Now, it could turn out that the duration of effectiveness of the Oxford vaccine is 6 months, whereas the Moderna vaccine works out at lasting for 50 years. We simply don't know. I don't think that would be the case. There are some early indications that the immunity from the Oxford vaccine might only last for about a year. People might need booster doses after a year, but if they do, at a cost of $3 per dose, that's not such a big deal. But we simply don't know yet. And it's also unclear how this will prevent spread of disease from person to person. But there's some early indications that it should be doing that, at least to some degree, if not to a high degree already. But we don't know those things definitively yet. We don't know those things for any of the vaccines yet. Independent Data Safety Monitoring Board has already looked at this. The vaccines met its this is kind of like a peer review, really. This was done with the other vaccines as well. Met its primary endpoint. Protects from COVID-19. Occurring 14 days or more after receiving 2 doses. So that's actually 6 weeks after the first dose has been given. So it's not fast acting, but it does seem to be thoroughly acting. No serious safety events related to the vaccine have been confirmed. Now, this trial was stopped a couple of times, which is probably why the data is a little bit later than the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine. But the people that got sick there, it was adjudged by independent medical experts that it wasn't caused by the vaccine. Because if you're dealing with thousands of people, it's not surprising that some get sick. So they believe the safety data is good. Again, data is accumulating on that all the time. So they're saying no serious safety related events. So that's encouraging. Well tolerated across both dosing regimes, so the lower dose at first and the higher dose at first. AstraZeneca is immediately preparing for regulatory submission, basically everywhere. Obviously in the FDA in the States, the UK, the European regulatory agencies, and all around the world to meet their rollout plan. So that will be getting done as we speak. hoping for early approval, and I suspect they are going to get early approval in Europe, the UK and the US. I'm expecting this vaccine will be being injected into arms in December. Also, emergency use listing from the World Health Organization for accelerated pathway rollout in lower and middle income countries, which is one of the big things about this vaccine. It is for the world. And Oxford AstraZeneca have recruited 20 partners that are going to produce this vaccine literally all around the world. So I believe the UK, India, Sweden, not quite sure where in Europe yet, Australia, South America. It's going to be produced all over the place. That's one of the reasons they're going to produce 3 billion doses in 2021. A huge. This is just about a pandemic ending vaccine if this all checks out, and it looks like it's going to. It's incredibly good news. Full analysis of the interim results is being submitted for peer-reviewed journal, so expect a publication soon. Professor Andrew Pollard is the lead academic in Oxford. These findings show that we have an effective vaccine that will save many lives. Excitingly, we've found that one of our dosing regimes may be around 90% effective, and if this is the dosing regime used, then obviously they're going to use less vaccine and more people can get vaccinated, so good stuff. Chief Executive Officer of AstraZeneca, simple supply chain, transferred at just normal fridge temperatures. No profit pledge, committed to broad, equitable and timely access means it will be affordable and globally available. This is the first vaccine that's going to be globally available. You know, the old saying that this pandemic is not over for any of us until it's over for all of us is true. Because if infection is left in one country, that can spread around again. So this is the approach I greatly appreciate, as I'm sure if you're watching this video you will as well. Hundreds of millions of doses on approval to all around the world. Now, one of the differences between the Oxford trial and the Pfizer and the Moderna trial was instead of using salty water for the control group, they used a meningococcal conjugated vaccine. Conjugated means it's joined together, so it protects against many different types of meningococcal disease, which is basically bacterial disease of the meninges, causing meningitis of the head, the neck, and down the back. Horrible disease, bacterial meningitis. I've seen some pretty nasty cases of that. It's not good, but in this case they're just using it as a vaccine to compare the efficacy of their vaccine against, rather than comparing it against salty water. So it does make a lot of sense to do that. Although they did use saline as a control in other arms of the study. So the control group were getting this, and the experimental group were getting the SARS coronavirus 2 vaccine. Participants in the study, all over age 18. This has been the case so far. Further trials do need to be done in younger people and children. Diverse racial, ethnic and geographical groups, excellent. They were healthy or having stable underlying medical conditions. So they weren't giving it to people that were sick. Again, more testing needs to be done on that. Clinical trials are also being conducted in the US, Japan, Russia, South Africa, Kenya, Latin America, excellent. And they're planned for other European and Asian countries, and the whole number in the trial should be around about 60,000. This is world leading research. 60,000 is the highest number that I've heard of in a trial. Manufacturing capacity, because of the way it's franchised out to different companies, 3 billion doses in 2021. Enough to vaccinate 1.5 billion people. Not enough for the world, but it's a good step in the right direction. Storage and transport, normal fridge temperatures, 2 to 8 or 36 to 46. It will last in the fridge for 6 months. Isn't that absolutely wonderful? And it can be administered by basically anyone. I mean, I could start training people up to give this vaccine now. It's a very straightforward intramuscular injection. Normally give the vaccines into the deltoid muscle in there. I don't think you have to, but that's where we normally give it, and it's a pretty straightforward procedure. Very straightforward procedure. So there you go, absolutely brilliant. Now, there are a couple, let me just, we'll just mention briefly these other arms of the trial that are being done. So this is another arm here, single blinded. In other words, the doctors know and the nurses know what they're giving, the patients don't. Randomised trial, assessing the safety, efficacy and immunogenicity. Does it generate immunity? Quite a large number of participants, over 18. And these are healthy or have other stable medical conditions. And here they seem to be experimenting with the lower doses, which is interesting. 1 or 2 intramuscular doses of half strength. That's 25 billion viral particles that they're giving rather than the 50 billion. And again, they're comparing it with a meningococcal vaccine as well. The second group are going to get the larger dose by the looks of it. So working out whether the smaller dose again gives even less is more. Well followed up, multiple time points, patients followed up for a year, weekly swabbing for the presence of the virus. This is very thorough research. This is just another arm of the study. Again, it's just slight variations. I'm not going to go through it all in detail. So this is a very, very thoroughly researched vaccine. And what has happened with this vaccine is, although it's been quick, they haven't skipped stages. They've gone through the same stages as any vaccine. They've just done it remarkably quickly. It's an impressive piece of initial science. It's an impressive piece of research logistics. Hopefully, once approval is granted, it will be an impressive piece of manufacturing, and hopefully it will be an impressive piece of global distribution. Absolutely excellent news all round so far. UK has ordered 100 million doses. That's enough to vaccinate 50 million people. The US apparently has ordered 300 million doses. I guess it's a lot cheaper than the Moderna vaccine, which is made in the States. UK government has supplied. Now, the amount of money it's cost to make this, £65 million, is actually peanuts. If you compare that the Moderna vaccine, I think the development there was initially given, from memory, was it $1.8 billion, $1.9 billion? Way, way, way more. So this has been done really on a shoestring. Makes it all the more impressive that this has worked. Contracts with France, Italy, Germany, Netherlands, despite up to 400 million doses to the European Union, enough to vaccinate 200 million people. Being produced in huge amounts in India for the vaccine allowance to produce vaccines for India and many poorer countries, producing 1 billion doses. China, Brazil, Russia have expressed an interest. Now, interesting, the Chinese and the Russians were mouthing off about their own vaccine ages ago, and now it seems they want to buy the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Brazil, of course, where the trials are taking place, that makes sense, and Japan discerning buyers as well. I just thought it was interesting that China and Russia are probably going to end up being vaccinated with the Oxford vaccine. There you go. So this is potentially a game changer. We should get the safety data in the next few weeks. I believe this is going to be given regulatory approval. I believe this is going to be getting injected into people in the UK, potentially the US and Europe and other places in December, probably mid-December at a guess. But we're not going to get herd immunity for some time yet. So hands, face, space, ventilate, vitamin D, all of these things are going to apply for the rest of this winter, because we can't stress this enough. We've got this winter to get through. Now, we can see that things are going to be massively better with these vaccines next spring and summer. We've got the timeline there for this particular vaccine, but of course we've got other vaccines coming along as well, and the several other vaccines should be coming out. 2 or 3 other vaccines should be coming out early next year as well. So every vaccine we get is going to help, because we need all the numbers we can get. But don't become complacent because we're not there yet. At the moment, the risks of many people getting sick and mass hospitalisations for the next few months are still going to be there. It's going to be a difficult winter where discipline is going to be required up until next spring, when things will hopefully start to improve. So be relieved, enjoy this news, but don't let it change your behaviour yet. So I'm actually really quite relieved by this. I mean, I've been waiting for this news on tenterhooks really for ages, and to think that the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine can give up to 90% efficacy is just absolutely brilliant. So thank you for watching. As always, do click on the links and read the full sources for yourself.